Okay, I guess we're ready to go. Mr. Beal may be here late if he shows up because he has a county emergency up north in the county, so that's why he's not here. He sends his apologies. So, Deputy Clerk, you want to start?
Good morning, Councilman Beal.
He'll be here late, whatever, hopefully.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Bettina.
Here.
Supervisor Thurston.
Here.
Councilman Phillips.
Here.
And Councilman Costello.
Okay, everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. So today, with the exception of one item, is basically a workshop. We hold at least two a year. So today we're going to be talking about a number of capital items, and I think that during those discussions we can, have entertain other discussion or questions or comments from the floor, since there is not a formal, provision in the agenda for, those comments. But I will have no problem entertaining, questions from the floor. I'm sure the other board members won't if there is going to be anything. Mr. Hand, did you have, something you'd like to again raise?
With respect to the resolution, I'd just like to speak with the board in an attorney-client session before the board acts on that.
So are you proposing to have executive session now, since it's first on the item agenda?
I mean, I'd like to speak to the board before they vote on the
Okay.
resolution.
Then let's do it, yeah.
Then do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Do we want to do that now, or do we want to do it after we go through a lot of the workshop sessions?
Well, it was just
It's okay.
first on the
Honestly,
agenda,
I'll
so
defer to the board. Do you want to go at the end? That's fine.
that's fine with me. Then we just agenda the order of this. But then we'll have to make sure we allocate enough time
Yep.
at the end, okay? Which I have no problem with doing.
Okay.
And I,
So I'll
okay.
make a motion that we go into executive session now for discussion of the first resolution, only resolution on
Yeah.
the table today.
There we go. Second.
Okay, motion and second, and then, okay, thanks. And then we'll move the order of the resolution. Actually, we have to take it out of table and then to the end of this agenda, and we'll make sure we allocate enough time. Okay, thank you. That was motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you. And the first item we have is Steve's purchase of the truck. Steve was to come back to us based on information he gathered from the last few days.
There was just one quote returned through the OGS bid system. And that came in at $56,158. It's an F-350 pickup truck equipped with a snowplow. As I mentioned in the narrative I gave you, the Colorado is old, it's unreliable, the frame is rusted. I have a letter here from the mechanic dated of January this year that states the truck is not well suited for the work that we do. It does not have enough carrying capacity to tow any of the trailers that we use. We can't haul a ladder in it because the bed is so short. It's just, the truck has seen its duty, and it doesn't serve our needs at this point. And I would like to replace it with a full-size one-ton pickup that we can also complement our snow plowing operations here in the wintertime.
So what are you using today to pull the trailer?
We have other trucks of that capacity, but, if that trailer, if the person running that truck, like Sal has been working out of that truck as best he can for now. But we've had to swap out into, the dump truck if he needs something that is heavier, but the dump truck is meant to carry aggregate or bulk materials. The floor on that is high, and then the walls are even higher. You need to climb up in and out of that truck to work out of it. You know, the pickup truck is basically, it's a pickup truck, and it's meant for the work that we're doing here.
So wouldn't Sal be best served with a, like you said earlier, a cargo van?
Well, that would be next year, but, you know, right now, I need the pickup truck. You know, I've got a schedule here on what I'd like to do. I would like to have, you know, if we can do both, that'd be great. But, you know, I've got your budget in mind here. The Colorado is at the end of its life. It needs to be replaced. In our operation right now, I can't afford to lose a pickup truck. And, you know, the van would be a nice complement to what we're doing, but, you know, I have that scheduled for next year.
Actually, you have it scheduled for 2024 based on what you sent.
Right,
us.
well, that was before the Colorado deteriorated to the point that it had. But, yeah, you know,
So I'm looking at your list here that you sent us back on October 17th. So you've got a 2012 Ford 250 pickup, supervisors use. I don't know if you use that or
no,
not.
that's mine.
That's his.
Supervisor.
Okay, you got-
That's not mine.
You got the 2019 Ford 550 dump truck and services. You got a F600 dump and services. You got a new 350 pickup and service. You also have, even though you're asking for a replacement, the 2009 Colorado pickup and service. I know it's unreliable, but it's good through, I thought you said June or July, because you just recently had it inspected, correct?
Well, it's inspected until then. That doesn't mean it's not gonna break down between.
No, I got it. And then you've got some other things here that you need that you put the list together here, so I'm just going off your list. So my question to you is, so how many people do you have now? Because I understand we've had some changes in your department.
Right.
How many people do you actually have driving around, full-time people are using trucks and vehicles?
Actually, in service, you know, because I have open positions available.
Oh, I understand, that, but what do you currently have?
Currently, I've got, I believe it's 7 on the rolls.
Does that include Stefan because he's
Yes.
out for
Right,
disability?
And that's, you know, that's a problem right now, is I've got a couple of people that are out.
They're all full-time?
But yeah, those are the full-times, and then I have 4 seasonal positions.
Did you
And
get the
three-
new, did you get the new pickup truck we just purchased? Is that in yet?
That came with the service last year.
No, but didn't we just do something for,
Didn't we just buy one?
yeah, we just bought one, I thought.
There's a van on order to replace the other Colorado.
All right.
Oh, van, okay.
Yeah.
So that's not part of your list, though, right here, that you put out on that.
No, because it's not here.
I get it, but you're going to.
But you, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be here.
Okay.
You asked me for current vehicles, that's what I gave you.
Yep, but you got it on order because we authorized money.
Right.
So do you have any other vehicles, Steve, currently that can do the plowing at the sites?
Yeah, I have 2 trucks for plowing.
2 plowing, okay.
Right.
So you don't need this one for plowing. It would be for towing largely and carrying
Well-
items.
$5,000 puts a plow on the truck. If we're spending that kind of money, it is a good idea to have a backup. If a snowplow truck goes down, and they do, because there's a lot of moving parts, and snow plowing is a very harsh environment. If a truck goes down, then that does not have as big an impact on our ability to clear the snow. Snow comes regardless of whether the truck is running or not. And that gives us a better ability to meet the needs here of the town, you know, with that truck in service. And it'll be an additional truck to get us through these storms in a faster reaction time than without.
If you had a choice between the cargo van and the truck,
Right now, like the truck, that's the reason I'm here. I've been advocating for this truck for over a year. You know, I would like to have the van, but, you know, Sal and I have talked, and our needs, our immediate needs are a pickup truck. You know, this is not gonna wait. It's, you know, I explained to you before that the market right now is in a very poor condition, you know, as far as availability goes. This truck is not gonna be available for much more than a week or so before they're sold out of the allotment.
Yeah, I think, Steve, if we were to do this, is that we'd need to, put on hold any other equipment item,
I
till a
don't
week.
have an issue with that.
Okay, till later next
I'm willing
year
to work
when we
with
see where we are.
Right. We're doing the best we can to get as much stuff done as possible. And in order to do that, we need the equipment and tools to do that. And this is a part of that plan. The Colorado just cannot be relied upon at this point. When we had, if we had a full complement of crew, then yeah, I could throw a guy with a weed trimmer in there to go around and do the parks during the grass operation. But outside of that, it doesn't have a whole lot of use.
But right
Word.
now, you have more than enough trucks to get the plowing done.
No, not no more than enough. I have enough trucks.
You have enough trucks right now.
We can get,
Okay.
we can get
That's
the
all,
plowing
that's all I
done.
needed. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So
I
do you,
I don't think you understand what we go through when it snows here. It just, I get very frustrated when I hear the responses that I'm hearing here. And we are very dedicated to the work that we do. I don't come in here asking for luxuries. I'm just
Steve,
I don't
Steve,
think
I don't,
anybody
yeah,
did.
I don't think we're asking for that, and I strongly support you in your efforts. I think we're trying to balance,
And I
costs
understand that too, but,
and
the questions I
growing
get regarding
difficulties
this
that we
is-
have. So, I mean, that's why the questions are being asked
Right.
about, it's not to challenge you, it's just to ask questions.
Steve,
So-
some of these questions come from the people in the town asking these questions. So when I ask a question or the board asks a question, there's a reason for it.
Well, when it snows,
okay?
we're under intense pressure to
I
get the
understand
snow
that-
off the parking lot
Steve,
before.
I
I'm explaining
understand,
to
but I've
you.
lived here my entire life. I
Okay,
know
so
the
you
snow
don't need
that's
the
here.
answers then.
No, I know what happens at the emergency services building, and I know the snow removal in this building. So thank you. And I thank your crew for what you do.
Are there any, I just need to ask this because of our responsibility, are there any other areas in your budget that maybe could be reduced or deferred, to, cover at least some of this
Well,
cost?
I'm gonna have a surplus this year in my budget that I would imagine would cover half the cost of this vehicle.
I mean, that certainly helps,
And, Councilman Beal mentioned at the last meeting that you're going into a $5 million fund balance. This is 1% of that.
And that's our decision to make.
And I understand that, but
It's
I
our
mean,
decision to allocate what we're gonna allocate. That's not your decision. That's why we're the board. So I understand your point.
and again, I can probably contribute, at the end of the year, I can probably contribute half the cost of it.
Frederick's in the office. Frederick's in the audience. Frederick, can you verify how much of a surplus he's gonna have, or at least he's looking at?
Well, if since he has a surplus, he has to tell us which lines those are, so we can.
When do you need to turn this around by?
This weekend.
I think this, yeah.
We were supposed to make a decision today. I got the quote on Thursday. They told me that they sell out very quickly. There's a specific allotment of trucks available. Once they're gone until next year.
So,
So,
why don't we consider this? He said he has a surplus, probably half, then let's instruct him to work with Frederick to find that half, and we authorize the total amount that includes half coming out of surplus for this
And you
year.
still got some resale stuff you can do too, some
Right.
other trucks.
Right,
Yes.
they'll contribute.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of value in that stuff. There is some value, but I'm not anticipating a lot
I don't
because
think he needs it
they're
right now.
old and they aren't
No,
very
I
good
already
quality.
did.
Okay.
I don't believe at this time it's necessary. That's my opinion. And I appreciate what Steve said, but at this time, I don't think it's appropriate to buy the truck right now because we can meet the needs of the town with what we have. I understand the constraints, but that's in all facets of business right now, as far as supply and demand goes.
So if we do this now, you're not gonna come back next year and ask for another van, right? Because we're looking at your budget lines and
Well, if that's
everything
what you're telling me I gotta do, then that's what I gotta do.
I think that's what we're saying now,
I'm gonna inform you
unless
of
there's an
what our
emergency,
needs are
right?
regardless. You guys can make a decision on whether or not you wanna move forward. But it's my responsibility to keep you informed of what's going on in our department. And I will continue to do that.
Thank you.
So here's my opinion. So if he's got $30,000 or so in his budget, he's gonna probably get another 5 to 10 for trucks that you trade in, maybe. So you've probably got another 15, 20K.
Well, you're being pretty generous with your numbers. I'm anticipating to be able to contribute about 25,000.
Total, including surplus?
I would like to be more conservative rather than speculative. I mean, I don't want to come back and have you upset with me because the numbers didn't turn out where I said they did.
So you can cover half the cost.
I believe, yes. You know, the only thing is, I'm going to have to be very careful with what I expend, you know, between now and the end of the year.
So just so you know, from my point of view, I was leaning towards you getting a cargo van to be stocked and loaded and have your tools in it. But in lieu of that, if you could do that, I'm okay with the pickup truck instead of the cargo van.
With the contribution
Yeah,
that's being
Because-
proposed?
There's a minimum of 25,000 contribution.
yeah, so I'm okay with that.
Problem is that underrun.
But it
Does that
can't
mean
be-
that- I guess the only I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it just, it's either or, you know, it's, pick your, you know, what your needs are.
So the only other thing I want to say about that is if you're going to underrun, is it going to affect some of the things that we told residents we're going to do, or is it just stuff you can't
I
physically do?
don't know what you've told people you're going to do, you know.
Well, it's your list.
I don't get it.
It's your list.
Listen, I put the list out there
And we're
for
not
you
done.
folks to decide what you're gonna fund. I don't have the money to cover that list.
Well, I understand that, the whole list, but there's certain things that we said we were going to do, because I don't want to take that money away from there, give it to your truck, and then find out we didn't do other things we said we were going to do, so that's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't recall anything of a big expenditure that you had, you know, said you were gonna do that was gonna come out of my budget. Anything that's large, you've already allocated monies to.
All right. We got to make a decision today, so that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I think we move forward with the vehicle. We say Steve's gonna cover half of it, so roughly 26,000, and then the rest will come out of B fund, Jim?
Yeah, good.
And, you know, I'll make sure I work with Frederick and Steve to get that money, but then, you know, we'll make sure we don't impact the other projects.
With the condition that unless it's a dire emergency, you're not getting
Yeah.
anything next year. Understand that?
Yeah, well, listen, like I said, I will keep you informed. You folks make that decision.
But anyway, that's the guidance of the board at this point in time, I think, you know, that, yeah, subject to any other comments we have. So you want to have a resolution right now off the floor with that in mind? I think that's appropriate, Al. You know.
Yeah, I think I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve this purchase for the $56,158.69 with the condition that Steve's gonna cover half out of his budget and the other half will come out of the B fund balance.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it, but also, I look at it, you can have 9 vehicles and 6 working employees. That's, to me, that's a problem, but whatever. If that's your needs, your needs.
I'm not gonna risk the safety of the residents.
So,
But what are we, I'm sorry, what are we risking?
I wanna make sure we get all our roads plowed.
He only, no, he
He
only,
does more than just the.
he's not supposed to be, if I understand right, Steve, you're supposed to take emergency services building
I do.
and the town hall.
no, he
Am I
does more
correct?
than that,
What
Steve.
else do you do?
I do town hall, I do emergency services, and I open up the parks. Well, actually, Slot House is part of the 3 here that we keep going because that's used on a regular basis throughout the year. And then I open the parks up for emergency vehicles as well. We do the rail trail parking area over on Didell Road too. We're responsible for clearing that.
Yeah, under agreement with the county.
But we do that now with what you have.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do. Listen, we do what we gotta do regardless.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
If this, the snowplow is a portion of what the duties are gonna serve. It's gonna be a year-round use truck.
Okay, so we have a motion and second. All in favor?
No,
Aye. Any nays?
no.
Okay, we have one nay. Any abstentions? No. Okay, so 3-1.
Thank you.
Steve, do you have a delivery date?
No,
Would it be delivered in this year?
I hope. If not, I'll encumber the funds.
Right.
Well, you can't encumber unless you have an invoice, right?
Well, I can get an invoice. Well, we'll have a voucher. We'll have a
Yeah.
purchase order.
Just make sure you have that. because,
Yeah,
again, we
no,
wanna
I'll
make
get
sure
that
Frederick
with
is
Frederick.
encumbering.
Do what we gotta do to make it right.
2020.
There's, the market is so up in the air, they aren't giving any kind of information like that.
Okay. No, it just, the reason why I
Okay.
said that it was the
Yeah, no,
encumbrance
I'll,
issue for
yeah, I'll
next year.
encumber the funds.
So Frederick, let's just work to identify from which lines that one half of this amount would come, okay? Thank you. Next item for discussion is water and sewer infrastructure. This is kind of a generic item because we have a number of projects that have been discussed. So Tim, why don't you, review what you've been working on, and then we can see what else we need to do. And related to that, we remind the board we do need to make decisions relating to ARPA monies to be used. And Jim, again, refresh our minds as to what ARPA can be used for, but largely it's infrastructure, that's such as sewer, and there's some COVID-related expenses, which I think we've largely covered. But what else, Jim? And then what is the timeline for it?
So ARPA, and I don't know if we had, one of the other things that ARPA money could be used for is replacement of lost revenue. And there's some calculations with respect to that. The deadline for ARPA was.
Can you talk louder? We can't hear you back there. Sorry.
Okay, ARPA can be used to replace lost revenues during COVID. And then ARPA monies must be committed by the end of 2023. I'll have to check to see the guidance when it has to actually be spent by. But basically, under the guidance that was previously issued by the Treasury Department, there has to be allocations at different periods of time. Frederick, did we get the second tranche yet?
Yes, so far we have received a total of $2.2 million. The exact number is $2,267,275.23. And we were supposed to have submitted a budget to the Fed about how we wanted to spend the money. So the budget that we submitted, I think it was in April,
Yeah, that was.
that we were to use 700,000 for Midpoint Park sewer development. We were to use 800,000 for Husonville Hamlet water extension, and we were to use 767,275.23 for Wildwood sewer plant improvement. That is the budget that we sent over to them.
And that's just was a placeholder, that wasn't any commitment, but just a placeholder because we had to meet that deadline. Yeah,
Yep.
so, but,
So what's the first 700,000 for?
Midpoint Park sewer development. It was for the project, the Midpoint Park sewer development was a project involving engineering and construction of a new sewer line from the town of Wappinger's existing Midpoint Park development in connection with the decommissioning of the sewer plant at Midpoint. So that was basically what the project that we agreed upon. Then the Husonville Hamlet water extension was to involve engineering and construction of the extension of water main to the Husonville Hamlet in the town of Wappinger. And lastly, the Wildwood sewer plant improvement, which was to be matching funds for the construction of a new sewer line to be soon, for the soon to be commissioned Wildwood sewer plant in the town of Wappinger. The sewer line would connect the Wildwood community to the tri-municipal sewer plant. So basically, those are the three items that we
Okay.
decided that we were tentatively going to use the funds for, because they
Right.
wanted a
Yeah.
commitment from the
Now,
town.
we
So-
can change those around.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And Jim, they can be used for water as well?
Water and sewer.
You know,
yes.
because since this came in, we have,
Other areas.
voted on, or considered other areas, including Route 9, and, there's Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, so, and some other areas too, and we've had, of course, NOV with respect to, another one of our, sewer plants. So I think, what we need to do is figure out how we do it, and I think it needs to be in some meaningful chunks, as far as, hundreds of $1,000s for,
And I think-
hundreds of thousands of
I
dollars.
think more important, we need to start using the money because.
Yeah,
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 that
they'll
would be
challenge,
helpful.
so that's,
Yeah, and
Is that what the state's requesting, for us to
yeah.
be more specific now?
Yeah.
Because-
So to
not
Well, there's
just
a
to spend,
spending-
but that means we have to be more specific.
So with respect to some guidance, this is from the National League of Cities. Contractually, the funds must be obligated by December 31st, 2024,
No, well, I don't know.
and jurisdictions have until December 31st, 2026 to fully expend the funds.
Yeah, I know.
So
Okay.
it's more short-term projects than long-term projects.
Right.
So, I think as we hear from our engineers on the sewer and watering, we consider some of the other projects, particularly if we look at Phase 1 with sewer, water down 9 and Chelsea and other areas. I think we need to figure out how we're going to divvy up, this money, and so we can come up with a plan and then instruct the engineer,
of
what
course.
we need to do.
This is
Right,
infancy
so,
stage.
I mean, we have been obtaining, we just got, a small grant the other day for a Fleetwood, study, which we need to be doing. I've talked with some others about getting some more money to do what is being done at Midpoint Park, but we have those two plants that we must address. Tim, why don't I turn it over to you, and then you can summarize also some of the initiatives that we've been working on.
Sure
So
thing.
go ahead, Tim.
Thanks. So the governor's office yesterday did a major announcement on a lot of the grant applications. WIA was one of them. Route 9 water and sewer were part of the WIA submission. They were not picked up or awarded for Route 9. So in taking into consideration a list of candidates for ARPA, that could go in the column of consideration. As Supervisor mentioned, we did get an engineering planning grant for Fleetwood. The town is under a notice of consent or violation, I guess, based on it's an outdated wastewater treatment plant. The speedies limits are no longer in alignment with what the regulations are. So we've known that Fleetwood was going to become a priority, and with this engineering planning grant, it'll help the town and us, put forth a plan to integrate that into a municipal system. Relative to just in general sewer projects, we finally received comments back from our submission to DEC for Wildwood, so the intent there would be we respond to those comments and technically have formal regulatory approval to go to bid. I would expect my office to be able to submit final submission by the end of November. Concurrently, we've been having dialogue with Woodhill Green as potential users for both water and sewer, but more importantly, we're going to require an easement be granted through their property for the sewer connection. Relative to Midpoint Park, we have a sizable engineering planning grant that we're teed up to implement, working with KMO once we get a little bit more rainfall. As you know, it's been a pretty dry summer and a drought, and some of our investigation work really should be done during a wet season or high water table. So hopefully by the end of December, we will have our field work done on Midpoint Park. The engineering side of that, we have multiple alternates, where that sewer could go, whether it's to Tri-Muni or possibly, East Fishkill. That's pretty much it in terms of real projects that we have sort of simmering on different levels here. I think out of all of them, Wildwood would be the most practical project in real time to hopefully we go to bid, say, early 2023 for a spring startup on that project if all goes well.
So when does it have to be completed by, the Wildwood? Is there a date?
I'm not aware of a cutoff date. I think what EFC wants to see relative to, and it sounds like with your ARPA funding, they want to see some initiatives in getting contractors on board, and so we can't really put that off to perpetuity. That's you're under a notice of violation, so that's like a #1 priority. Midpoint, after we submit the engineering planning grant, the plan there would be, and out of that report, we would have design alternatives and costs, and we would make a recommendation based on the board of which alternate would be the likely path that we would take and assign dollar amounts and then resubmit for funding for that global project. So that would be next year's kind of goal for midpoint.
So from a Wildwood perspective, right, we're at roughly $5.5 million, at least that's what the project cost was before. We had roughly $2.5 million worth of grant funding, correct? And so what we want to try to do is, I know that you're working on getting additional grants. The idea is to make the impact minimal to the residents of the area. So certainly some of this ARPA money should be applied to that. Midpoint as well, I mean, we haven't really got any grant money on that. I know Jim was able to get an extension for us, so we're going through 2026.
But we had the 100,000, but
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
not
yeah.
significant, that's immaterial to the
That's-
cost.
yeah.
It's minimal compared to what it's gonna cost us.
Well, that's a planning grant.
Right.
Yes, planning
That's the
grant.
first
So that's,
step.
so that's
Right.
8 to 10 million potential or more project to do that, to either hook up to East Fishkill, and I guess Tri-Muni would be that much more expensive. So we need to make sure that, again, we use some of this funding
Right.
here for ARPA to help out with midpoint as well. The idea is, again, here is get as much grant funding, and I think we're all working towards that goal for both those projects, because they're the most immediate, and again, make the impact to the residents as minimal as we can, because there is gonna be some level impact. So again, try to minimize that so that people are paying higher taxes, everything's up, inflation, et cetera. And so we want to, again, try not to impact the residents as much as possible, so.
And so we prepared a map plan and report based on estimates and all that, and it's a rule of thumb in terms of drilling it down to the user costs at the end, but until we really can go to bid and get actual bid numbers, then we can plug those numbers back into our formula, have a better idea of what that unsubsidized amount would be, and maybe that would help the town decide
Absolutely.
how much.
When do you
our-
think we'll see that?
I'm thinking it's gonna be early 2023. It's taken literally 2 years for us to hear from DEC on
No, I
our-
understand,
on our-
Yeah.
they're not quick. No,
And
I
also,
understand that,
it's
but-
taken the same time to hear from Woodhill Green
Yeah.
and, to
So
get
there's still
approval,
some
so.
moving
I just
parts
think
in there,
we're
but I
running against
really
the
think.
clock.
We are.
Yeah, I really think we should be able to go to bid early part of 2023 for a spring 2023 project, so.
Tim, I know it's a crystal ball, but with the costs rising quarterly, if not monthly, where do you see, say, 6, 8 months down the road, where the costs are gonna rise?
You always ask me and I really don't
I
know. I
it's
mean,
a crystal ball.
you know,
I get it.
it all depends on
Cloudy one.
availability. I mean, luckily for us, the Wildwood project doesn't really involve high tech or like controls, like digital stuff that has a long lead line. I mean, there will be a pump station that has to get put in, but there's certain amounts of that work that can get started in short order. It's always been a 30 to 40% markup from what we were talking about maybe 2 years ago, but labor costs continue to go sky high. So
Tim, how much of that project is also contingent on the village stepping in? Because we have to make the interconnection at the village, and as I recall,
well, all that was in an agreement.
Right.
I think the wild card really would be the water part.
Right.
The water part was kind of interrelated to the interconnection on Losi Road. And we know that's sort of stalled, and we don't know where the village is on putting in their infrastructure in for Losi Road. But the other part is, does Wood Hill Green want to buy water from, as part of this deal? And I've copied some of you guys in on the correspondence and trying to answer some of their questions. And I always know at the end of the day, somebody wants to know how much is it going to cost? And these are all just kind of rule of thumb budget estimates at this point, so.
So the original designs, way back, had just included running sewer from Wildwood to the village. But CPL had developed a alternative or an addition to that plan, which also involved running water lines, in essence, within the same construction area, to provide water from the town water supply, from United Wappinger Water District to Wood Hill Green, which would also connect potentially the trailer park on New Hackensack, as well as some of the other properties along there. So we have that ability. The village, originally Wood Hill Green water supply was to come from the village with a bore under Route 9. However, the village is having some issues with some contaminant in their well. I can't recall what it is.
Iron or manganese.
It's either, iron or manganese, so they have one well out and they're operating off of one well, which may limit their ability to provide additional capacity to Wood Hill. But if we ran the water down to Wood Hill Green, we could also make a second connection to the village as well, so.
Is Wood Hill Green on well right now?
They have their own water supply, yes.
Yeah. And same with
Can I ask a
sewer.
question? So, I'm hearing a lot of different things. I don't really hear Route 9 being discussed that much. So is it realistic to say that Route 9 is really on the back burner for water?
Well, we'd have to have further discussion.
I mean, it seems to me that at least, since we divided into phases, I think, again, as we're talking about ARPA monies, we should perhaps consider Phase 1, which is your neck of the woods, right, as far as that section that is unserved, where we have Hannaford on one side, but all the other, establishments going down that don't have water. So I think that's something that can be discussed. We do have ARPA money. The grant monies were, as we just heard, not granted, this round, unfortunately. So, we have to figure out what to do with respect to, Phase 1 if we're going to do anything at this point in time. So, but we have to consider that, and I fully understand yours and other concerns up in that area.
Not one of them was.
Yeah.
Route 9.
No, it's, Route 9 is key, because we want to be able to hook up residents also.
That's what I would
Yeah.
have
Oh, of course, no, we're gonna do everything we can to help our businesses and also help our residents. So, just because we lost this round, doesn't mean we're
Yeah.
not gonna keep fighting.
And our experience has been we may lose the first one, but we come back the second and third.
That is very, very important. I
So-
mean, I have constituents, I understand the businesses, your needs, and we're not giving up on this. This is just one little setback. And if we have to use the ARPA money, so be it.
Do we know if there's another submission we can do since we lost out on this particular round? Do we know if they?
Well, generally, the way we do, they gotta let the dust settle. We can make an inquiry to see where our applications sort of fell short on their point scoring.
I would like to do that.
We
Find out
typically do
ASAP.
that. It's just, it takes a little time, to get in there.
Everything takes time.
I get it, and I understand the concerns in the back, because we did talk a month or two ago about running water and sewer, or at least water, down the Route 9 corridor, and certainly they have a valid concern, because we've been talking about doing that. We were talking about, different phases being somewhere between about 54 million in total from water and sewer combined, and we would do it again in phases, but if we can get, I think Jim was saying, was it 5% of the total, so like 5 or 6 million from a water perspective. We can go back and see if there's anything else we can do to come back and try to get that money at a later time, because, again, we kind of told, the businesses that's what we were gonna go do. So I think that we owe it. So as soon as you can find out what we fell short on and what we need
Right.
to
We need to
correct,
know.
so that we can, next time the application goes in, we should probably be ready to go in earlier versus later, because I think the earlier you get in, of course, the maybe it's first come, first served, so let's get ours in as quickly as we can and try to make this thing go through. But again, we need to start working on this. This is important to our town, it's important to the tax base, it's important to the businesses and also the residents. So whatever we can do to,
So this year, calendar year 2022, the state's done something a little different where they kind of do rollout announcements. And there was a rollout announcement in April. There was this one now. I believe the CFA announcements are due by the end of December of this calendar year. There's one other grant pool that came up, was the bipartisan infrastructure law, which I don't think was part of this announcement.
No, it wasn't.
So it's not over yet, but it's like we were going for WIA, which was announced. You know, there's quite a few. I asked some of our grant people in-house if they thought there would be, again, like an additional WIA announcement later in the year, and they seemed to think no, but there's the CFAs and the BIL, they call it, so.
So we can pursue those, right?
Yes,
We are
and
pursuing,
we are,
right,
yeah.
Jim?
We have put in on, I believe, the BIL.
Yeah.
okay.
So with respect to the grant awards that were
Every
made
single
yesterday,
grant that becomes
on WIA, in Dutchess County, there were 3 awards. One was for Greenfield's Water Interconnection Project up in Hyde Park, because there's PFOAs and PFOSs in the water system. And that was the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority. Town of Poughkeepsie got a design and construction grant of $1.5 million for the Hudson Heritage Sewer District, which is the project just north of the Maris there on the opposite side, the old psych center. And then the third award was to the town, to the village of Pauling, to refurbish a water field, a well field for $1.28 million. So, you know, the largest award was to Greenfield, $4.5 million, but again, that was because of a contamination situation.
I got sorry. Sounds like the key to this whole northern part of this water is the village. Obviously, the village is in dire financial straits. That Wappinger Lake should have been dredged a long time ago.
Wow.
And the funds that were allocated for the hurricanes to replace the Red Oaks Mill Dam. Because that Red Oaks Mill Dam belongs to the village, and that held back a lot of contaminants coming downstream from the upper part of Dutchess. And all the stuff is coming into Wappinger Lake, and they spent all that money on those filters and new pump station on the lake by the old park off of Doug Armo Hill, Dealer Avenue, and the lawyers say now it's contaminated again in one well. So the village needs to get their act together and take care of this lake issue, and that's the key to a lot of these contaminants, and they wouldn't lose these wells. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we cannot rely on or ever count into any of our formulas, the village, unfortunately, because of the financial issue. But I think that, what we need to do in light of the fact that we didn't get this first round of grants is, again, go back to, as to Route 9, go back to our phases. We looked at, phase 1 is the logical connection. That's the upper portion of it. And I think, Tim, we need to understand what might be the cost associated with other grant monies with phase 1, and then what portion of ARPA, do we take that and then help with the engineering studies and look at what it costs to bore under, because most likely it has to bore under, Route 9, come across to the west side, and then take it down, starting with the upper half, kind of where UN and others are located, both residents and businesses. And so I'd say, subject to the board's agreement, as to one project, we look at phase 1, and as I recall from our other discussions before, if we show some proactive work, shovel on the ground, just like we did with Wildwood, then that's some of those checkbox, issues that we will discover what we need to do. But, when we did have previous discussions on like Wildwood and so forth and got additional, ultimately the funding, it was as a result of sitting down with the EFC and, all those folks. So I think, but I'd say if the board agrees, let's look at phase 1. Because we can't connect going down unless we have phase 1, and we have to look at probably some monies going into the Fleetwood study that looks at taking it from the Fleetwood plant to Route 9, and some other options. We've gotten, Jim, I don't know if you counted up, but we've gotten maybe 25, 30 petitions, from Houstonville residents about the interconnection. there. We have Chelsea, certain areas that are significant.
Smithtown Road needs to be
And
cleaned up.
midpoint. So I think for the board, Tim, maybe you do, not back of the oven, peel the onion back a little bit, and so that we can have during, whether or not it's, one of our remaining few meetings this year or the first, couple meetings in January, and maybe have another workshop, but we need to see that. In the meantime, you can circulate to the
Yes.
board, what your findings are, right? Everybody agree with that type of approach?
I think that's a good approach.
Yeah,
It's
so-
an approach. We need to do something.
So, I think, we can, of course, involve, the community, but each of you represent
Of course.
the wards, and plus Bill, who is strongly in support of this approach, so.
Again, this is very important to our town going forward, to the future, and to all the residents. Water is key.
And the
sewer
good
is
news
key.
is we've built out enough water supply so we can handle, these projects. So let's make that an action item. Tim, you can take that, and then Jim, and then we, come up with a better idea of how we want to perhaps spend the ARPA monies.
So one of the other things that we had discussed previously was with respect to the extension to the DEP shaft, because that construction contract is coming to an end. I believe it's supposed to
Now-
finish in 2024.
Everything, the contract itself has come to the end with the exception of our commitments on the water supply.
Correct, right. So the
So the
contract-
actual infrastructure and all that is
Right. So
to an end.
Right.
The city of New York had provided to the town of Wappinger with $11 million for water infrastructure. Those monies were spent and reimbursed by New York City. So that portion of the contract has been completed. With respect to, there's an obligation that the town provide water to the shaft for construction purposes, which is ongoing, but the amounts that have been used by New York City has been greatly less than what was originally
Right.
estimated, so there are surplus water that's available.
And I think on that, Jim, our commitment with the wrap-up of the contract was around 265,000 gallons.
Right.
As you look at the flow on daily, we have
Correct.
more than enough, to cover that and to expand off of the pipeline, off of the big line, both in, Houstonville area as well as Chelsea area. So the water supply, we've, in our discussions with, the city and the folks there, we're fine with expanding off of our big, red pipeline.
So when the pipe was constructed, when the water main was constructed there were service connections put in place for all of the residences along the route.
I need some water.
Typically on Old Hopewell Road and New Hamburg Road, connections were provided on one side of the street. When the main was then transitions into Wheeler Hill Road up to Carnwath, at that point, taps were put in on both sides of the road. And then the water main runs through Carnwath out to River Road, and then down River Road to Chelsea. So there is connections on Wheeler Hill Road and Old Hopewell and New Hamburg that were never activated. At some point in time, the town board had intended to extend the United Wappinger Water District to service those properties. So that's another potential for expending ARPA funds to bore under Old Hopewell and New Hamburg Road to provide services on the opposite side of the road. So that's another.
So we have a long list, but we have
Right.
2.2 million that can't be split up in too many pieces. You know, we have some important projects under which consent order, and also, you know, that, you know, service some of the folks that were cut out of the previous, you know, funding.
That's very important, and they're the
So,
closest to the river.
so I think, Tim, let's, you know, do that, and then, you know, it can be an ongoing thing and supplying us with reports, and then we'll discuss at a near future, you know, board meeting.
Steve, Tom, keep me informed of that, please, because I have
Sure.
residents that are very concerned.
I mean, one other point to just state was, when we looked at all this Route 9 extension, you know, there was a big commercial contribution to help offset some of this cost. I don't think it was ever implied that the town would kind of incur full barrel of everything, right? So, I mean, we're doing what we can, and what we submitted for the grant would have been the largest scope that made the most sense for funding. So there's certainly room to cut that back some, depending on the available capital, so we can look at that.
Tim, we were ready to do the connection for the village at Losi, right? And so from our end, we were set to do that?
Well, we had a plan in place
Right.
where the village was tracking, say, a year ahead of us,
Right.
so that they could get their design done, get the health department approval, and then construct the main. And then we would come in as we're following behind and have our design done and approved. So the main was there already in place so that we could connect our
Well,
part
in
to
fact,
it.
we got a $1 million grant,
Yeah.
right? 1,090,000 grant.
Yeah.
Plus, we did approve, and I think it was funded actually through a bond
we
issue.
bonded it, yeah.
We bonded it already, you know, but the $1 million from the village, you know, I keep raising it almost on a weekly basis, and it's not to be found.
Right. So we were tracking a timeline, say, in our design, for the record, is not complete yet. We haven't even completed and submitted to the health department, but on the same token, the village hasn't commenced the construction of their end, so.
So just for, you had talked about bringing water to Woodhill Green. Where was it, how are you gonna run that? I mean, just basically.
There were two options, and it gets convoluted with this intermunicipal grant with water. The state was looking at it as, it's kind of simplistic, but water in versus water out. And say the Losi Road was gonna be water in, because the premise was if the village had to take a water storage tank offline to do some restorations or maintenance, then the town could feed that, so that would be water.
Or had a
in.
fire or some other calamity that required us
And
to help
then
them.
originally it was water out, being from the village going to,
Across,
Yep.
yeah.
Because I was
So-
just kind of wondering how you would get to service the Route 9 corridor.
But then what Jim was referring to earlier, I mean, we did stop and say, okay, we're gonna forget about the village coming out to
Right.
Woodhill Green and look at coming from United Wappinger, but that was never part of our funding and budget, and that was gonna add probably another 3 million to the price tag,
Right,
so.
right.
So that's why I said, like, if Woodhill Green just says they're not interested in buying water, then I'd say in theory, the village line goes away, but now I don't know how that affects the Losi Road concept, because they wanted water in and water out
Right,
kind of
right.
thing.
The village has new engineers. Have you had a chance to engage with them?
I haven't personally. John Bodendorf did from our office. They didn't really seem to know anything about it. Based on your request, I reached out to EFC, and they since prompted, and I haven't heard that, you know, anything is really advanced at
Is
all.
there any deadline on that 1 million from
That I don't
EFC?
know. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, let's find out. Let's look into that. I need to know. We all need to know. You know, so we don't want to lose that million. You know, we have to figure out a way that, you know, make it work, because that's a nice chunk of money for water down there. And I believe that since then, Jim, you may know that the village has entered into an agreement with Poughkeepsie, may not be tapping into it yet, but Jay Baisley said that they have, you know, done an agreement for
Yeah, it's-
emergency water.
Right now, it's for emergency water. While the village, back late 2000, around 2008, 2007, 2008, the village had their wells offline, and they were drawing water from Poughkeepsie, from a connection at Delaverne. And they then refurbished their water treatment plant around 2011, 2010. So they had previously drawn water from Poughkeepsie, so they just basically resurrected that connection.
In agreement. Right?
An agreement.
Yeah, an agreement. I don't think they're tapped into it at this point, but anyway. Okay, so we have a number of things that we need to complete, some checklists and timeline and, and get some more certainty as to monies, to be allocated, to some of these projects, so.
So from a time perspective,
Yeah.
we got about an hour left to go.
But we have a half hour that we need at least
Yeah.
for,
At least half hour for the resolution.
Resolution.
So we want to, pick some of the things. If there's people in the audience, or they want to hear something specific.
well, I know, one of the items that we have a couple of our, residents here for is the highway safety one. If we want to jump to that, and if you'll recall what we had discussed, and unfortunately Bill's not here, is the possibility of, let's say, signs,
Yep.
right? And we have residents here from Kent Road, and we, and as we've discussed with others, there are other major roads where we have speeding issues, but generally safety issues. So I think one of the items that, why I put it on here is to discuss some things that we could do, like those signs, right, that can be set up, or maybe, cameras. We've had, meetings with the sheriff's deputies on looking at about 12 roads, and making sure, that we have about 12 roads in the town that cause major issues in each ward. There are some that are located. So today, we have a couple residents from along Kent Road, and I guess, would you guys, Scotty, or you want to, one of you just speak briefly, so you just summarize the concerns, whichever, one you want to, so.
We live, yeah, sure.
Yeah, just come on up. Scotty, if you want to come up too, you can just sit here,
We live
so.
on the corner of Kent and Central.
And identify yourself for the other board
My name
members.
is Mike Sims. I live at 30 Kent Road in Wappingers. Scott Sims. Right next door. So.
And if you want to kind of angle a little bit the board and the camera. So.
My good so the concern has been, I've been there at least 10, 11 years. Scott's been there a lot longer than I have. And it's been an ongoing issue where people are just using that road as a drag strip. And, it's getting worse. I've had petitions out with Lori, that used to be the old supervisor. And then when Mr. Thurston came in, nobody seemed to know about them. So I've kind of.
Because, again, all of our files, previous files were gone, as I mentioned to you.
So, it's been an ongoing issue. It's gotten worse. I mean, there's been accidents. You guys have done a speed report on this thing, and it's it's in the top 3 worst roads in the town. And nothing in the last 11 years that I've been there nothing has been done about it. You've had the sheriffs out there. They tell you it's a problem. We have town vehicles blowing through the stop signs, high school kids going through the stop signs, adults, men, women, it doesn't matter. And now there's more kids in that neighborhood, including my own, right? Scott has 3.
My wife's hit twice.
It's all down the road. Right, it's all down the road, and the cars aren't stopping. The cars aren't slowing down. I suggested putting in speed humps.
It's not bumps, humps.
Not bumps, humps, right. They're wider, they're longer. And, there is a split system. I wish the fire inspector was here, that I did more research on. There is a split system to where the fire trucks can actually go through them with their wider base. So it's not a continuous speed hump, it's split into a section, so to allow the wider axles to go through.
Have you had the discussion, because we had talked about follow-up with New Hackensack after we talked?
I emailed the fire inspector. I
Howie.
emailed him that video. I talked to him.
Right.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
You haven't heard anything either, right? We're just really concerned, and the whole neighborhood is concerned. It's not just us two. It's just getting everybody together is a hard enough task as it is. We're just asking for some help here because this is out of control. It's out of control. We watch it every day. FedEx trucks, town highway department. You know, I've seen it all. We've seen it all, and it's just becoming kind of amusing at this point. But somebody's going to get hurt, and then what? You guys know about it, but nothing is being done about it, and we're just asking you guys for some help.
So I live off of Kent Road myself, Robin Lane.
Yep.
The stop signs are invisible.
They're invisible.
Yep.
They are, we all know that. You have conversations, the highway superintendent, they're his highways. He will say, okay, I'll put them there, but what's the other 11, 12, 15 roads I have to put them on? So that's a problem. If you talk to him and his guys, plowing's a problem.
No, it's not.
Well,
With all due respect, sir.
Okay.
All I can do is tell you
Yeah,
what the
don't-
highway superintendent tells me. He's our guy who plows.
Okay.
So it's his decision. I agree with you. Right now, our biggest asset we have is the law enforcement. When, I know, because at the bottom of the hill, I have that second stop sign by Lake Oneida, when they sit there, they stop there. It happens
Sure do stop.
for 2 weeks. And then they go back to running them. I know that, we know that, and that's all we, at this point, I
Right.
believe, as a
Right.
town, that's what we can do.
Well, I would suggest, the other things I suggested, and excuse me for interrupting, is that, one, we can, as we talked about at the last meeting, buy some of the electronic solar signs, and that, put them on poles or trees or what have you. And also I talked with Sergeant Stewart about some cameras. The state yet does not have that sort of system other than at the toll areas. That's one. Second is that as we look at speed, we do need to go back to the state, to deal with what has been a real problem in Angela's neck of the woods on several roads on the speed limits. That's something we can push for. Third is that, we did start a process, Mike wasn't able to come to the meeting, but the fire company, and we can have another meeting with respect to the speed hump. Beacon is doing, that, now, and so other areas are developing it because of this system, right? You were part of, you worked for NISDOT for a while, right?
I have experience in this. I've been plowing since I was 10 or 15 years old. I with the DOT as a foreman for 13 years. The speed humps have no effect on the plow trucks. You're not talking a speed hump that is, say, a foot wide. We're talking about 4 feet wide and only about 4 inches off the ground. It's just to slow the vehicles down because the cost of it, you guys are paying the sheriff's department to come out there, that they can't always be out there, and they stop when they are, but realistically, they're not constantly out there. They can't be out there all the time, and we understand that. But again.
So I think relating to that, one other thing for us to consider, and, we need to discuss it when Bill's here, but we have talked about increasing some of our funding for the sheriff's department. And one of the ideas is that we have more of a stationary patrol that focuses much more on the speed, the speeding and other violations. Sergeant Stewart is willing to consider that as an option. So we take our 12 highest impact roads, which that's about what it is, several in each one of our wards. Even our fire inspector, Mr. Prager, said that he has a problem on his road, right, and understands this need. So, it seems to me that, we could allocate some monies, that are kind of like a pool to draw down for some of these mechanical, visual types of aids. We talk with the sheriff. I'm just proposing this consideration. We talk with Sergeant Stewart, and to say, okay, what would it cost to increase some funds for dedicated traffic, patrol, right? Not necessarily full-time, 24/7, because the other patrols can do it. But, this is my thought. At least we start, pulling away from some of the layers of the onion, to attack it. I don't think we can.
If I could say.
Yeah, sure.
If
Absolutely.
people start getting tickets and start losing their license, that's gonna make a difference.
Sure.
And that's a problem. Trust me, your road is a problem along with many roads in the town. Even on my road, I have people that have been got
Right.
killed.
And- and-
I
It's
mean,
understandable, but when is it enough enough? Like, if
It's
you guys
never
have
enough.
it- If nothing is being done about it,
So,
then.
yeah, so that's the
Something
purpose.
is
you
going to
can
happen.
do something, but you need to do something that's gonna make a difference.
And that's why I kind of, again, you guys may think that it's extreme to have these
No.
speed humps, but they work. I've done homework on them. I've done where they're supposed to be. I know all
I'm not
these
doubting
things.
you. I think
I know.
that's fine. But I think it's more imperative if we have a cop out there, or we have a
Sure.
policeman out there, and people
Greater
start-
regularity is
and
what
somebody
it is,
starts losing
right?
their
I think
license.
Chris and Al.
I think that's gonna have a bigger impact,
And-
especially when there's
right.
children and seniors involved in these communities.
And I think we can
So-
look at, like I said, the top 12 streets. So, we have, whether it's Ketchintown, River Road, north and south,
Chelsea.
Wheeler Hill Road, Chelsea Road, we
Osborne
have
Hill
Montfort,
Road.
we have, Canton, we have a number of these roads where the speeding has, and other aspects of it, that have gotten, more, it's a safety issue. But what I'm suggesting is that we consider, and we get some numbers on it,
funds.
some
Put more
money,
money
and
into-
for the combination of, tools, equipment,
Definitely.
as well as the patrols.
Patrols.
Just, keep in mind too, the high school has, I graduated from Ketchum. They've been jogging Kent Road for 20, as long as I've been there, 27
Right.
years,
Mhm.
They're constantly up and down that road.
Every
And
afternoon.
they don't
Yeah.
care. Mr. Phillips, you see it. You gotta be able to see it. Nobody cares down that road.
No.
And, well, it's a
I know.
nice neighborhood and we wanna keep it that way. We don't necessarily like all that cut through stuff. Yeah, it's great. It's nice to have, but for the safety of my family and everybody else's,
Of course.
hopefully something,
So I think from a more immediate, what we can do, and I think we can probably make some level of commitment today, is number one, we did add more money in for patrols. So we've certainly added that into the budget. I think the second thing we could take a look at is certainly getting cameras. Third thing is getting the speed signs. As far as the humps go, that's something else we're gonna have to pursue. I know that's the route you wanna go. I'm not sure we can do that. We have to look into it further. So I don't wanna offer you a solution today that we can't fulfill. I don't wanna do that.
sure.
But those are things I think we
Yeah.
can do in the more immediate. I used to run cross-country track, run around Lake Onyad myself. Matter of fact, we ran across the Lake Road. So I was
Yeah,
just at the
yeah.
time,
That's-
but we used to do that too. So I understand that the
Safety
concern
first.
there is safety first. I get it. But we used to try to, anyway.
And
I
I-
understand your
yeah.
concerns, but those are three things I think we can probably
Right,
do.
agreed.
immediate,
That's what,
And we gotta look into the humps.
Yeah.
And that's the best I think that we're gonna be able to offer you today,
Okay.
as you're standing here today.
Hey.
But know that we're gonna continue to look
Your
into it.
research, you're talking about the cameras, you're doing research on the trial thing to put them up at the intersections. 'Cause like
Yeah.
You said too, people start getting tickets on a regular basis.
and,
Oh,
and I
that's gonna
think
make a
we
difference.
highlight, we
Big
pick
time.
the most significant, serious, intersections or what have you, and do that on a trial basis. I think we do know, because we've seen it in the village and elsewhere, the signs, that are solar driven and so forth, and cameras can go on that.
Solar too.
And we have a very good, since the
Yes.
sheriff's department provides us the service, we have a very good relationship with them. And so what Al just mentioned, which is a summary of our discussion, I think all that's doable. And we can figure out what we need to build into the budget if it's not already there. It's not going to be a huge amount of money because they don't cost, millions of dollars.
Can I ask too, is, I know where the pedestrian crosswalks, where they usually have a sign in the middle of
The
the
double line.
intersection of the double line.
Sign.
Can we put some of them on too? Just to have people aware of something, when I was up with the DOT, it was either a cop or a flare that these, people stopped at. Not the bang boxes that were sitting behind us, so something to draw the eye of the driver.
It's something that we can consider. I
Sure.
mean, definitely, but and I know, if you see a cop giving somebody a ticket
Oh.
on your street, it is very influential of everybody
yeah,
else.
absolutely.
And the more
Absolutely.
you see, the more people get the idea, hey, I'm
Right,
gonna get caught,
right.
and how many tickets is it before you lose your license?
Sure.
2? I think, something, your insurance goes sky high. Hello?
Yeah.
that I think is so key, that we need to have more patrols.
35 on
The
this.
speed limit's 30, 35.
Mhm.
They
I
don't
understand
care.
Right,
it considers
right.
to be a main road, even though it's a development.
So I think, you know,
It's not
ju-
a speed limit.
I know.
Unfortunately, we have to move on, but I think Mike and Scott, you know, we have a commitment, you know,
Oh, it's
today to
very
do
important.
something more,
It
you know.
is.
You know, for your ward, you know, then Councilman Phillips can, you know, coordinate. We have other wards, including
course.
Bill's, that will, you know, work on, but we'll get something going. You know, that's more than what you have right now. I think that's our commitment. Then we'll work with you. You know, we do have to work, you know, as we've started with the fire department and with the highway department on the issue of humps and so forth. And as Al said, you know, that's a
Any
longer term
information
issue.
that I've done to
Just
help you
send
guys
it
out,
to
us.
I'd be happy to.
Definitely.
Yeah, send it, you know, all the board. I can give you all the board emails.
We're on-
Some information on the humps that you were talking about before, I'd love to see it, because
I
Yeah,
have it, if, I can show you
I-
right
Just
now.
send it, just send
You
it.
know, I
Send
have
emails.
some stuff from him. I'll send it to the board members, and then
we should
there's,
send it over to
Right.
highway. and see if
yeah,
there's-
yeah.
Because the town of Beekman has. it.
Beekman does, and actually the sheriff department and I confirmed that Beekman does have it, and so we're, you know,
So we don't-
looking
we
at
don't
their
wanna roll it out,
issues.
but we want to make sure
Right.
it's, you don't pass through our highway department.
Any idea is
So-
welcomed.
So I think, you know, thank you,
All right,
Mike
thank
and
you.
Scott, and we'll,
Thanks for your time.
we,
Appreciate
you have a commitment for us to start
to
it
work on
with
this.
several
Do
things to
better.
do, and then we'll do more as we look at it, okay? Thank you.
So we have about 15 minutes.
Yeah, and we have some guests, you know, the Pontes, you know, I think probably want to talk about Carnwath.
Okay.
Yeah. My guess is, right? Right, Bill?
Yeah, you got it.
No, no,
How
no.
you doing?
Thank you.
I'm the president of the Sports Museum, right here in the town, okay? And because of COVID, the last 4 years, we've not been able to have any events at all for our income, okay? But we had to pay rent, we have to pay insurance, we have to pay all our bills, okay? And what has happened is, our money has grown to nothing, okay? And, you know, even like, since 1973, we've had a dinner at the end of the year to induct people into the Hall of Fame. The last 3 years, we've had no dinner. And, you know, this again was another revenue maker for us, okay? Which we couldn't come up with, okay? I did meet with the supervisor, he was very nice. He has $5,000 he was going to put in possibly.
Right,
for the
that
budget
is.
for next year.
That's in there.
It's in there.
But right now, Barbara and I have written checks for $4,600 to pay these things. We've had nothing from the town. And, you know, I mean, I just want to just let you know what's going on. We're at a building there. We have out, you know, we have porta potties. We have no running water. We have no heat. We have, you know, no air conditioning. It's very difficult when people come in there because we don't have these things. And what I've done for the last 4 years, you know, I try to, and Dick knows this for sure, I tell people how great Cottonworth Farms is and what we're trying to do and everything like that, and people just look at me and they've heard it year after year. And they want to know, when's it going to happen? And I tell them that it's in the plans, you know, and which it is, okay? But right now, we need money to pay our bills. And if the town can help us, you know, that's what I'm asking for. You know, I would say maybe, you know, $10,000 would make us really good, okay? I mean, that's what I'm asking for. Because right now, because of the weather, we're closed. We close in October, and we're going to be opening up in April. Now, the county gave us a grant for $20,000.
Right.
With that money, we opened up a room. We bought computers, other things going along with that. We're going to do something for the youth, okay? Ralph Holt, some of you probably know,
We all do.
worked in the town for many years. We dedicated the room to him.
It's a
okay?
beautiful room. If you haven't seen it, you should go out and look at it, because they did a nice job, really a
And,
nice
you know,
job.
we don't have the money to buy the things that we wanted to put into that room. And, you know, actually, we paid for the painting of that room, you know, and, yeah, that's all. You know, I mean, I'm not asking for it, it's just, you know, that it would look good for the town. And, you know, like, people, we have a jar.
Fundraising jar.
So, Jim, you know, the question always becomes, what can we do with respect to organizations? We've been able to work on some aspects with the Historical Society, with the museum, but since Carnwath is the town building, I assume that we could dedicate some additional monies toward capital, that then helps you, in a sense, defray some of your costs and expense. So
Sure,
with
certainly.
respect to the maintenance of the sports museum right now, we have other issues as far as water and heat. But I'm just asking the question, Jim, as to what legally
Yeah, I
we
mean,
can
all of
do
the-
to
any-
help, if the board
Any
wanted to help. So,
any improvements to the building are considered to be,
so even like
Tax
their
purposes.
room, as far as the painting costs and,
So can they be-
insulation
So
and
can they be
windows.
reimbursed because they did it?
Could they be reimbursed for some of that
Since they did
already?
this work,
Since we are the owners of the building and they're,
you've already put in
Tenants.
money to update and keep it running for the residents.
yeah,
Can they be reimbursed?
they'd have to provide,
Receipts.
receipts
Yes,
of what
so
was
if they have
done.
receipts, they
You know, I
can
don't-
submit
I
them
don't-
to.
do you
the-
have some?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I don't know if you're necessarily gonna be
Okay,
able
Barb's
to,
shaking her head yes.
I'm sorry, Jim?
I don't think you're gonna be able to reimburse them for labor. You certainly
No,
could
but for
reimburse them
supplies
for,
and stuff,
Yeah,
that-
supplies, certainly.
And, maybe, so, and I know you've been, the internet, and actually
yeah.
Steve's been working on that
Peter-
too. So, maybe we
So
look,
why doesn't he just submit all the receipts that you
Yeah.
have, we'll have somebody take a look at it, whether it be Frederick or. Go ahead.
Wi-Fi is terrible.
Yes, it is.
Have you ever thought of having Verizon or Optima come in and put a tower?
Let's not go
Yeah.
there right now, because there's supposed to be a tower put up in Chelsea.
yeah, it's a very
That's
contra.
supposed to service the area because there is no connectivity there. And it's not done yet.
They're gonna pay you for this.
I'm sorry?
You'll get paid every month from whoever's going to be doing this.
This was approved already.
No, that tower's on private property.
Yeah, that's private. It's not town property like over here.
But it's been approved because there's a
But-
need in the community
But
for it.
Steve, we have been looking into, I don't know if you have a Wi-Fi, update or how to further enhance that Wi-Fi situation up in all those buildings.
I'll get in touch with, Cablevision again.
Okay,
Ex-
The new system has gone down 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since August. And every time we have somebody come in, we're looking at a $300-400 bill.
yeah.
I feel for you, I'm sorry, but there are people that even go down Chelsea Road,
right.
town employees
Wow.
that go down
Not
to
just
the
Chelsea,
river.
either.
The Wi-Fi
People that
for
live there do not have connectivity in their cell phones.
Right, no, I understand, that's
But-
why I thought maybe if we.
Well, the tower is
Right.
supposed to help.
Yeah, but Steve, we'll follow up with respect to making sure that that has a stronger signal there or what we need to do to
Jim?
enhance it. But
Yes.
wasn't
What
that
is
part
the
of our
status
agreement?
of that?
I was gonna say, I think we have, the cable franchise agreement. I
Carnwath
believe
was part of our
lists
cable
Carnwath as
franchise
Well,
agreement.
what about the tower in Chelsea? I thought that was approved in.
Yeah, it's being constructed. They issued a building permit.
No, they
Are
were
Are
doing,
they started? Have they started?
I
Do you know?
believe so.
Does anybody know?
well, we know there's construction going on out there
I
because
don't
we've
know.
gotten, calls about clearing of the road, the
So that may help.
what have you, right? So we know it's going.
True, I'm
But
sure it will, I'm just throwing out.
But Barbara, we'll look at that more closely. Steve, is responsible for Carnwest, so.
Yeah, and this issue exists among a number of parks. Almost all of our parks are in a cell phone dead zone. And I've been trying to
Not
work
just
on
parks, homes.
correcting that. My biggest problem is having a reliable contact with Cablevision.
Yeah, I like to
And,
keep changing.
Once you mention government, nobody knows what to do. They have a commercial side and a residential side, but once you mention that you're from government, they don't know.
Yeah, he's supposed to get back to me this next week. The government relations contact that I have about Robinson, right? So I'll raise this about Carnwath as well.
So let me just give you a little thing, since we're talking about Wi-Fi at Robinson. We just found out about a week ago, we're not gonna get the New York State Championship here because we don't have Wi-Fi. They gave the contract to Long Island. So we lost that, a huge, huge revenue. So what you're gonna see is we start getting into budget discussions. I've added a line in there to try to get Wi-Fi in the budget out at Robinson Lane. We can choose to do other parks too, but we really need to take care of this.
Well, we can install the hardware.
Yeah.
It's a matter of getting the
Yeah.
the
So they're gonna get
provider
back to me
talk
this week,
us. You know, I
next
can't
week.
do any, I
Yeah.
can't make Wi-Fi come out
Yeah,
of the air.
that's the
It has to be
problem.
connected to someone, and those people don't return the phone
Yeah.
calls.
But can't you still run the wire out there?
We can,
But there's
So why
no
don't we do
connection.
if that's what you want. Normally, the provider wants to do that work himself.
Well, by the
Well,
time we
you
get the
won't be
provider,
able to
it'll be
connect to the, you won't be able to,
2026.
well, you won't be able to connect to their
Ridiculous.
system.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm gonna put a wire out there to nowhere. Unless they tie into it, we
Is-
won't have service.
So you found the
I thought
conduit?
it was Altice.
Yeah.
It is,
there's
and he's
a-
supposed to call
empty
me
conduit
back
that
this
runs
week.
out.
Who is
They were
that
doing
guy?
a study.
What's his name?
I've just forgotten his name.
Because
have it.
I have somebody who's a
No.
VP up
Tim,
there.
didn't you
Yeah,
have
no.
I was suggesting you guys check with ITC. I
Does
don't
he ever
know.
fix the
They,
phone
they,
out there?
they know a
No.
lot of, but not that
Well,
they're
they may
the,
have contact.
that's what I'm
Frank
saying.
Oliva.
Not that they're the answer to your
Frank
problem, but
Oliva.
they may point you to somebody
So
that,
I'm talking about the friend.
A-L-L-E-V-A.
Do you have a
I
contact there,
can't
Steve?
see.
With
Okay.
ITC? No, I have to get that through my.
Can you send that to me, please?
Sure.
I'm tired of getting answers, no, no, no. and
paying the bills.
I know you're doing everything you
Yeah.
can.
Give us the,
Well,
I can only make phone calls. That's all
Give
I
us
can
the
do.
receipt.
everything,
Otherwise, you're
here,
putting up bail money.
everything, wires,
Give that to him.
computers, anything.
Listen, we had a death in the family yesterday.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, but if you can get that to us like in the next week or so, because we're, yet to finalize the budget, but we can put that in, okay? We're looking.
Something, some sort of a fund from COVID,
Right.
that we were affected by COVID. That's still-
Anything's
Well,
possible. We can
that's at the county level, and so Ron Hicks, who's our deputy, he's the one that's been handling it. I referred a couple other matters, like for, a couple other organizations. So there is a form in the process, and so you can call up Ron. If you don't have his number, then I'll get it to
Well,
you.
actually, he was at a couple of our.
So contact him because that window is closing, okay? And so, but he can help you or he can give you the forms and so forth, so, yeah, you send Ron the email.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for your
I'm
loss.
sorry for your loss.
So with respect to the,
Yeah, but still.
No, but still,
still a
every
loss.
law, especially these days,
Thank
it's
you.
even worse. Okay,
Be
thank you.
safe.
Thank you, be careful, watch the cord.
Take care, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
No, absolutely, thank
So we
you.
have about 5 minutes
Yeah.
left. Is there anybody else in the audience, they wanted to say something about an agenda item real quick? Because in about 5 minutes, we have to go into
Yeah,
executive session.
but,
Do you want
yeah,
to say anything? They don't, I know you may have had some things on existing parks. that you
Yeah, I
wanna
want,
mention.
in our parks, I want to have cameras, and I want to have Wi-Fi installed as soon as possible, and I think we've put that into the budget.
We
That's
need-
very, very
We need
important.
Wi-Fi for the cameras, correct?
yes.
Yeah.
so with respect to the cable franchise agreement last negotiated in 2018, Exhibit A provides municipal buildings to be provided free cable service. Town Hall, Highway Department,
Say
Mercy
something
Ketchum
about-
High School, Lop Junior, Myers Corners, James Evans, Emergency Services Building, 3 services with 3 boxes. Schlatt House Park, Carnworth Farms, Houstonville Fire, Chelsea Fire, and New Hackensack Fire.
Did you get Robinson Lane added onto that one too?
Doesn't,
No, I'm kidding.
yeah, no, we negotiated with them and they said it was too far.
Get Castle Point in on that?
There's no building, is there?
Oh, yeah, we have a building.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
It's not elaborate, but there's a building.
It's a storage facility and bathroom facility.
It's a building.
No, exactly, yeah.
Does that have running water in a
And
bathroom?
it has running water too, Jim.
Okay, I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't in the, I guess,
How often are they?
But we can add it.
every 10 years.
Oh, God.
That would be good if we could add it.
Sir, is there anything else that you wanted? I know that we're going quick on that. Tommy wants to come up and say something.
I think we all agree with the cameras and.
Absolutely.
We need to have cameras and we need to have Wi-Fi. God forbid there's an emergency. People need to be contacted, be able to reach emergency services. That's so key today.
Verizon has been rolling out 5G in the
Yes.
town on utility poles.
Yes,
So they may also, be investigating
to help us.
co-location on structures, so that's another option you may consider. It's
That would
not
be great.
Wi-Fi, but it's 5G.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too we want to look at is, and I'm still waiting for it, the fencing out at the Rockingham soccer field. It still hasn't been here. The electric for the pond out there at Regency Park, still not there. I was hoping Steve was here, and the Robinson Lane
Did he leave?
fence. We still have to approve that. You gave us, Tim, a number of bids, so we have to go back and approve that as well, correct?
Yes, we're still,
And can we do that on the 14th? Is
Yeah.
that too late, November 14th?
I think that's enough time.
Okay.
Thanks,
They're
Tim.
generally good for 45 days. I know Jonathan kind of updated you guys at the last meeting.
Yep.
It would help my office to know, like, what sort of budget are you looking? Are you looking to award them all, or do you have?
So I think the alternative we talked about last time is because we have about 75,000 from the original
I mean,
100
you'd
we
write the
approved.
resolution, right?
We're gonna try to stay within
I just
75,000.
have blanks.
Yeah.
So we're gonna look at the different alternatives. What I wanted to
Right.
do, and Dick and I are gonna meet with Jeff from Little League Baseball
Right.
to figure out what are the alternatives we can kind
Right.
of fit within that 75,000,
Yep.
try to get those moving
Well,
forward.
it'd be helpful to reply to me and Jim, because Jim's got the
As
resolution.
long as I know I
think,
have till
ready,
the
but
14th,
just-
because I just haven't had time.
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
confirm, but I'm pretty sure.
No.
We can do
Thanks,
that.
Tim.
Thanks.
Yeah, and that's, we drafted it with alternatives,
Wait,
so you could.
2 minutes
in essence,
left.
it was-
Tommy, you had something to,
So I want to capitalize on the gentleman regarding the stop signs. As you know, the Village of Fishkill and the Village of Wappingers have taken steps in their grants to put illuminated crosswalks. Person presses a button, yellow lights come on the side, on the thing. I just did a little quickie. They do make stop signs that are battery operated solar that have sensors in them. So if we can find out who the manufacturer is, have them send one up, have the town put one up, see how long the battery lasts, what's the warranty on the battery. So basically, you'll have the stop sign with the red lights in it, and the thing, if a car comes up to that sensor, it'll click off those red lights, and it'll be an attention getter, and see if that will solve some of these stop sign problems. And see if they can be retrofitted with cameras for tickets at a later date.
Do you have somebody in mind, or are you just starting to research it now?
I just clicked it offline real quick.
If you happen to find something, you want to send it before, that'd be great. We can start looking at it, and we'll take
Yeah.
a look as well. But if
We
you-
got something not too long ago.
yeah,
Right.
right.
Why don't we
And
just
I'll ask the
what they
village too,
use?
what
Okay,
they're
Well,
gonna
the
do with
village
it.
uses a crosswalk, but you press the button. it
But not
clicks
the
off
stop sign.
Well, we have
Yeah.
specs, for that when we did
Yeah.
one for Fishkill, for the
Yeah.
crosswalk, so I'm
Correct.
sure it's
But
just the same
But
for
the
stop
stoplights are done
sign.
by radar detection, so if a car comes on, it'll
Comes up.
stay on for 3 minutes or whatever.
Okay.
timeline,
Flash.
and flash
Well, we'll,
and
we'll,
give
we'll look,
detection.
we'll look into
I
that
think it's a
then.
good idea.
Yeah.
And
I
also
mean-
too, since we're on the safety issue, the Adams stop sign is non-existent. It's there, but people still continuously
blow
pull
through.
out, and somebody's gonna come from the opposite direction.
No, I know.
There's gonna be another
Yeah.
major crash.
Yep, I agree
So
with you
I'm not
100%.
sure exactly what to do with that. Adams is a good partner, but they can't control.
I mean,
what
you don't
people
get
do.
out there with a flag, Tom?
I wouldn't, it's too dangerous.
I'm just, no, agree. I mean, that's why I have it on the agenda, so you start looking at some of these things and start doing some funding,
Well,
for
my
it. It's-
grandfather used to do before the Adams days is take the old 65 wagon and put it out halfway in the road, and people did slow down.
Can't do that.
I know.
Can't do that
That was
now.
when he was alive.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Tom.
Tom.
Thank you.
Anything else real quick? We have about a minute left before we go into executive.
Now we can,
I would say, I don't have enough time.
now, then we'll,
Let's
why
just
don't we
go into
just
executive
move
session.
into executive session?
Yeah.
And I guess we can go down to not to disrupt this, we'll
Why don't
go
we
in the
just-
small conference room, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I guess,
So I'll
I make a
to go into
motion
executive
second.
okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed, thank you. We'll- Do I have a motion to come out of
cruel.
executive session?
Make that motion.
Motion, wait a second, motion second to come out executive session. Jim, comment?
For the record, no action was taken in executive session.
Okay, thanks. So now we're going to go back to the resolution. Chris, you have a motion,
I
please.
just make a motion to take resolution 2022
56.
156.
off the table.
I'll second it.
Motion second to remove the resolution from the table. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. What I'd like to do is make a motion, and I'll read, the proposed amendments to amend that resolution in several aspects. The first proposed amendment is to amend the title to read, quote, "A local law to eliminate the authority for designed residential developments in the town of Wappinger." We're doing this all as just one resolution. The second resolution, the proposed amendment to Section 2, this is related to legislative intent. You know, the general purpose is to repeal this to remove an inconsistency, but our council has some wording, if you'd like to read into the record, Jim.
So, this is for, this is just the amendment in the zoning, the proposed local law, and we will submit the changes to the town clerk so that the town clerk can incorporate them into the local law, which will subsequently be circulated to Dutchess County Planning and the Planning Board and made available to the public. Section 2 of the local law is entitled Legislative Intent, and what's written should be replaced with the procedure for a designed residential development was first adopted in the town of Wappinger 1980 zoning ordinance. The provisions of 240-50 design residential development set out a 5-step process with overlapping jurisdiction between the town board and the planning board. Since 1980, no design residential development applications have been submitted to the town of Wappinger. In 2010, the town of Wappinger adopted a comprehensive plan and amended its zoning code. The provisions of 240-50 are inconsistent with the zoning changes made after the 2010 comprehensive plan, and there are ample alternatives in the town of Wappinger code to provide for varied housing types.
Okay, thank you. You know, that's adequately covers the legislative intent. The next amendment that I'm proposing to better clarify the legislation is with respect to Section 3 of the local law. The amendment would be to simply state that Section 3 says that Section 240-50 of the Town of Wappinger zoning code is hereby repealed. Okay, eliminate all the other strike-throughs and everything else, because this is a repeal of that legislation, previous zoning code. The next one would be related to the public hearing notice. I'd like to have the amendment read that the public hearing notice is to be revised to note that, quote unquote, the purpose of the law is to repeal 2040-50 designed residential development. Keep it simple, but it's stating in the public notice that it's the appeal. And then also with
Also,
go ahead.
As you noted, the title of the local law has changed.
Right.
So that should be amended in the public hearing.
Okay, yeah, all documents that have that title, we will, propose in the amendment. Also, with respect to the FEAF, we have this document that we need to attach and send on. I'm proposing that also within that, within, on page 1, part 1, page 1, that we simply note too that 2040-50 is being repealed. It's not amended, it's being repealed. Then additional amendments to this document is that, BE on page 2, part 1, should list Dutchess County Planning as a county agency, and 239-M approval, is also to be noted. Okay, so we have the proper agency that needs to take action. Further, the answer to FEAF Part C2 should be yes. Correct, Jim? I think as I have it on my notes. The answer to C-2-B should be yes, and Hudson Valley Greenway should be listed. And we'll make sure, Lynn, that we, get all the details. I'll give you this form as I will to the board so they have the record. C-3-C is correct, but R15 for certain areas and HB for certain other areas should be deleted. Okay, so we're looking at the overall, purpose of this legislation. On FEAF Part 2, Section 17, it should be checked. The box should be checked. And, subsection C should be checked as no or small impact may occur. Okay, so we're listing, is there going to be an impact by this? And we say no. Section 18 should be checked yes, and box C should be checked no or small impact. So that consists my proposed amendments to clarify any discrepancies in inconsistencies. Jim, is there anything else that you can think of? Okay, so I have a motion on this. Do I have a second?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended resolution per Dick and Jim's updates.
Okay.
Second it.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, it's been approved as amended.
Is it appropriate to set a public hearing at this time?
It is in the-
Wait.
It's
in the notice
it's in the
for the-
resolution
I believe
itself.
it's
I
in
didn't amend or
for-
change any of that, it's just in the resolution,
Public hearing is
It's
set
December
for
12th.
December 12th
right?
at 7 PM.
Okay,
Very good.
okay, any other business?
I want to thank everybody for tuning in
Yeah.
and wish
And-
everybody a happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, and remember, we
Stay
do
safe, and
have
please, go
veterans.
and
Yes.
Yeah,
vote.
Yes.
It's very
Please
important, come and
yeah,
vote.
no matter what you vote for, just
come and
vote. At Veterans Day, we have it here at Town Hall in the front by the flagpole. That's going to be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We have a nice ceremony as always. Also, the village has it, I believe, at 11 o'clock in the morning over in the village. So, stay tuned and please come out and honor, recognize our veterans. So, and I thank the public who participated here physically today. We appreciate the comments to this workshop, and we will be building some of this into our budget for next year and be taking other actions as we go forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a
Okay.
motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor to
Aye.
adjourn? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
minute early.
Yep. Thank you.